I remember on my second meeting for my second 12-step meeting for my sex addiction, I was sharing about how I like women to dress up in highly professional outfits and high heels, and just talked about what I liked. Whoa. And after the meeting, I was talking to a guy, heterosexual guy, who'd been in the program a while, and he had a sense of calm and peace that I didn't have. He had recovery I didn't have. And he made this brilliant point to me. He said, you know, this problem we have with fetishizing, that's not our problem. None of this is our problem. It's just a symptom of our problem. And it was a brilliant point. Porn addiction is not our problem. It's a symptom of an inability to connect normally with other people. Every Orthodox Jewish bachelor I know well is a porn addict. I remember I spoke to one guy, a friend of mine. He turned 40 and he'd finally gotten married. And a few months later, I asked him, how's marriage? And he says, sucks, man. My wife won't let me watch porn. And then he got divorced shortly thereafter and has not remarried. So addiction is a symptom of a lack of connection, normal, healthy human connection to other people. We're wired to connect. If we can, we'll either connect with TV or with extreme exercise or extreme practice of religion or extreme political involvement or extreme political movements, social movements, or substances or processes such as sex addiction, love addiction. But none of these things are our problem. And alcohol's not our problem. Not even for the alcoholic. It's a symptom of a problem. For the alcoholic, alcohol for a long time was the solution. It helped him overcome shyness. It helped him to connect with other people. It helped him go to sleep at night. It helped him have energy to get going during the day. For me, retreating into fantasy started off as a coping mechanism for being miserable with my real life. So I just retreat into fantasy and bliss out, and my problems went away. And I had a tool that I could immediately use to feel euphoric and to dull the pain and to let go of all my problems. And then later in life, at times, porn became my coping mechanism. Like, without using porn, I couldn't go to sleep at night. And if I was depressed during the day, like, porn would make me feel alive. Like, my most alive, most pleasurable, most like turned on, most, you know, seeing life in all its dimensions and colors in all their intensity, and feeling truly connected with the universe and with the source of life itself. Those moments came when I was using porn. The rest of life was the rest of life was kind of dull compared to that. There's 20 minutes a day of erotic excitement. That was the highlight of my life. And yeah, if you enjoy a couple of drinks with your mates and no drinking more than that, then obviously you don't have a problem with alcohol. If you can use porn like a gentleman, then you don't have a problem. If you can lust like a gentleman, you don't have a problem. Yeah, no fault divorce was a stealth victory for the left in destroying the family. Once one of their more impressive wins. Great comment in the chat room. But for some of us, it seems like marijuana is the problem. That marijuana has turned us into a loser. I've never touched marijuana. I've never touched any illegal drug. And I've had probably no more than the equivalent of, I don't know, 8 drinks in my life. I had a couple of drinks at my high school graduation because I wanted to experience it. And then I'll have a sip of wine at Kiddush, which is a Jewish ceremonial occasion. But other than that, I don't drink. And one of the reasons I've never taken up drinking or drugs is that I've known since probably age 11 or 12 that I'm an extremist. And I probably wouldn't handle drugs or alcohol moderately. And how do I know I'm an extremist? Because age 11 and 12 I took up jogging, and then I found myself wanting to jog more and more and more, and I eventually completed 5 marathons at age 12. So a marathon, 26 miles, 385 yards. And the body is not really built for running marathons. Running marathons is not good for you, even if you're an adult. And it's particularly not good for you if you're a kid and you're growing up. It puts a tremendous amount of stress on the immune system. My parents didn't want me doing it, but they couldn't stop me. So I would just go out and I'd run 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles a day. And completed these 5 marathons. So I knew I was an extremist. I just couldn't quit running until my knees started bothering me at age 14. They would swell up when I'd go running. And I concluded that I had the same problem that a friend of mine had, Osgood-Schlatters disease. And so I quit running and never took it back up in an extreme way. About age 18, 19, I'd run a couple miles a day at times, run 3 miles, no problem. My body had finished growing, and so my knees were able to handle the pounding. But if the problem is say credit card debt's not the problem. Credit card debt is a reflection, to me, fundamentally, of a lack of normal human connection in your life. Because all money comes to us through other people. Somebody always has to write that check. Somebody always has to sign off on that payment. So if you don't connect normally with other people, you're very likely to experience financial distress. You're very likely to be poor. Like all the great stories that I broke as a blogger and as a journalist were basically stories that were given to me. I'd done the work to establish myself as somebody who was interested in the topic, who was willing to be brave, to report on difficult issues. So yeah, I'd done the work, I'd met people, I'd made connections, but in the final analysis, like the real big scoops were given to me. I'd gone out, I'd done the interviews, I'd connected, and then people said, oh, do you want this? Suit says, I said to my boss, nice to Mercedes, he says, well, if you hit your targets, work hard, stay focused, next year I'll be able to get you one, or something like that. Yeah. So credit card debt and poverty are a reflection of the quality of your relationships with other people. If you have a problem with hoarding, it's a reflection of, I suspect, lack of normal connection with other people. So you have an abnormal relationship with things. 2 years ago, Josh writes, I tried to get drunk to cope with the loss of my dog and never felt so miserable. But what are your coping mechanisms. Do you have any unhealthy addictions operating in your life, Josh? So alcohol may not be your thing, but what about porn? Do you need to use porn to go to sleep at night? Do you need to use porn to feel alive? Do you need to use porn to have a sense of purpose in your life? Do you need to use porn to feel connected, to feel vital? So, yeah, about 3 years ago, I had about $50,000 in credit card debt, and I finally took some action because my computer had broken down. The computer I still own, Hewlett-Packard, I think NV700, had broken down after less than a year of ownership, and I had to ship it away, and so I didn't have my computer to distract me in the evenings. And so for years I heard about programs like Debtors Anonymous, and I need to listen to alt-right podcasts to get to sleep at night. It might be a problem. So I didn't have my computer to distract me. I couldn't watch Netflix. And so for years in my sex addiction program, I'd heard about programs like Debtors Anonymous, and there's Under Owners Anonymous and programs similar. And so I finally took action one Thursday night in May of 2015, going to one of these money programs. It was a visions meeting, and I immediately found a community, immediately found a plan, immediately found 12 steps, I immediately found tools. I immediately started bonding with people, and I found sources of inspiration, and I started connecting with others, and I started connecting with myself in a more healthy way. I used to wake up at 2 a.m. with frightening clarity. Have you ever gone through this? You just wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. and you see your life in a kind of clarity that you don't see during the day. And you see what's missing, or you see that you're headed in the wrong direction. That was my sense. I would wake up 2 or 3 a.m. just absolutely horrified by my life. I was writing on the porn industry. I was trafficking in a lot of gossip. I was in constant conflict with other people. I was getting death threats. I was in unhealthy relationships. I was pursuing women who were bad for me. I was making a mockery of my conversion to Judaism. I was a sense of shame for my family, for people in my religious community, for my friends, for my relatives. And it was horrible. Those 2 or 3 a.m. waking up, tossing and turning and thrashing and just feeling horrible. And it got to the state where the most frequent self-talk I was doing was, I'm so effed, I'm effed, I'm so effed. That was how I was talking to myself. And I had this one psychotherapist for about 10 years. I wasn't doing therapy with her for every year, but on and off over 10 years. Probably we were working together for about 4 or 5 of those years, about half of that time. She says, it felt like I was just managing you from crisis to crisis. We couldn't really do any deep work because you were always in crisis. But I was going to this temple, Oratora, had a great rabbi, Mordecai Finley, who's the best teacher of the inner life of any rabbi I know. And he was inspiring, but I couldn't pull it together. Not even with therapy and with Rabbi Finley and with my Judaism. I couldn't pull it together, but I knew there was a better way. But all the problems I saw, the ways that I was shaming myself and others, and the self-destructive things I was doing, and just kind of going in circles. I was trying to observe Orthodox Judaism at the same time. I was writing a daily blog on the pornography industry, but these problems I saw, and I try to figure out the solution. But I don't think I realized then that my problems were not my problems. They were just symptoms of my lack of connection to God, to other people, to my true self. So nowadays, I'm on easy street, man. My life is pleasant, and I never wake up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat feeling like my life is headed in the wrong direction. Never. It's been more than 3 years since that happened. About once a year do I completely misjudge a social interaction so that the other person then becomes like, okay? So that used to happen to me regularly. Now it happens about once a year. Now, I get into turbulence at times in my daily life. And it's always because I've gotten out of alignment with my higher power, with the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, with my best self. When I've gotten out of alignment with being of love and service to other people. So I will often get into trouble by saying a remark that I think is funny, but it's really none of my business. And so other people will say, "Shut up, Luke. None of your business. I'm not talking to you." Get into that kind of trouble intermittently, and it's always a reminder to come back and oh, what's my point here? Is my point here to amuse myself by my witty commentary on other people's lives, or is my point here to do a job, to be of service, to help other people? Because when I keep my focus on I want to help other people, then I don't get into these types of trouble. So I don't really have problems anymore. I just have these reminders to work my program. When I feel uncomfortable or start not liking myself or start having conflicts with other people, those aren't my problems. Those are reflections of I'm not working my program properly. I'm not in alignment. I need to adjust. I'll give you an analogy. So I do this strain counter strain practice. I learned it from Gadi Kaufman from his book. I think it's called Back Pain Relief. And there are about 10 procedures to do to release various sets of muscles in the body. And I've been doing them for 18 months, pretty much every day, and found quite a bit of benefit from them. But still I'd get aches and pains in my spine, and hips would get out of alignment, and I'd have to go back to Gadi to get his work, his adjustments. And when I went back the last time, and I lay down on the table, and he just poked my piriformis muscle, it's like really tender. And I said, "Gadi, how can that be tender? I just did the release in your book. You show in your book, I just did that release 2 hours ago. How's the piriformis muscle tender?" And I hadn't done the release right. I'm not the type of guy who wants checking the engines before the plane takes off. I just don't pay enough attention to details. So I was like doing the general outline of what you recommended, but I wasn't making sure that my knees were at about 110 degrees to my hips. My knees were instead 90 degrees to my hips. And so the release procedure simply doesn't work unless your knees are within about 5 degrees of what he recommends. And you can tell when you get a release, because the quality of the muscle immediately softens as you release the muscle, blood flows into that area, and you just feel like a softening as the muscle releases its clenched hold, as it releases its spasm. But I was going through the procedure, I was going through the ritual, but I wasn't doing it right. And this has been going on for 18 months. So now I make sure that I get my knees to about 110 degrees, or I think that's what he recommends, 120, something like that. My hips, my knees to my hips. And then I bring my shoulders towards the side of my body that I'm releasing a little bit. And then when I feel the muscle softening and releasing its spasm, then I know I've done the release right. So just going through the motions isn't enough. And just going through the motions of the 12 steps isn't enough. And just doing the releases the way I think they should be done doesn't necessarily get it done. So when I have back pain, which is pretty occasional, fairly rare, maybe every few months, in all likelihood I'm not doing Gaudi's releases correctly. I'm not paying attention to the detail. And if I'm having turbulent relationships with other people, it's because I'm not working my program. I'm not thinking about it being of love and service to others, but I'm thinking about what can I get out of this interaction? Like, how can I use this person to amuse me, or how can I show off how smart or witty I am? And then I get into trouble. So I do some volunteer work a few hours a week. And when I was at my volunteer position a few weeks ago, the director of the training program, I just walked over and just like ripped into me. Completely, dressed me down and threatened to throw me out of this volunteer program. So the old Luke would have reacted in one or two ways. I would have told him to get stuffed. I would have gotten angry at him. Or I would have talked to a bunch of people, about what a jerk this guy was. Or I would have been self-hating on myself. It's like, oh, I can't even do this volunteer position right. I'm so careless. I don't pay attention to details. I'm just a useless person. I'm just a bad person. I can't even do volunteer work. I would have reacted in one of those three ways. And this time, I didn't react in those three ways. I think I told one person about what happened, and just in a completely neutral, descriptive way. I didn't distance myself from the volunteer program. I kept doing it. I signed up for more classes. And I didn't hate myself. I made some adjustments. And if the director, if he just regularly castigates me, breaks me down, then I'll take steps. I don't have to let other people abuse me. So I'll give you another analogy. I once had a boss who was just incredibly volatile, and he could not be controlled. I tried all these different stratagems to kind of keep him under control, but he could not be controlled. So through working the 12 steps, I finally had enough self-respect that I realized this job was a toxic environment for me, and I turned in a letter of resignation. And as soon as I turned in my letter of resignation, this boss immediately changed the way he treated me. He only treated me nicely and respectfully. And I didn't make a big deal out of my resignation. I didn't go around the office space saying, I'm finally quitting that jerk, he can go to hell, or I'm going to show him. No, I completely stayed out of any need to one-up my boss or to try to show myself in any particular light to other people on the suite. I just noticed how my boss changed in the way he treated me, and I rescinded my resignation on a provisional basis. As long as he continues to treat me with respect, I would continue to work there, and I just kept working there. And there's an illustration of how much power we have to shape how other people relate to us. Like when we have self-respect, other people naturally treat us with respect. When we don't have self-respect, when we sell ourselves short, there's simply no end of people who will take advantage of you. So there's a question there: do I have narcissists in my life? I don't think I do. I don't think I do. If anyone makes me unhappy, I largely remove them from my life. Not in a final sense. There's no one that I can ever look in the face again. But I minimize my contact with them. So just on my show, I don't bring in guests who make me unhappy. I don't make program calls on a regular basis to make people unhappy. So there are quite a few people in some of my 12-step programs who want to connect on a more regular basis than I do. And I don't want to connect with them every day because they're depressed and it's a downer listening to them. So instead I may connect with them once every 2 weeks. That way I look after myself, but I'm also open to being of service to others. And I also set limits. One friend was constantly telling me about how he wanted to commit suicide, and I finally said, I don't want to hear that anymore. Don't talk to me about that. And I said, don't talk to me about depressing stuff. Talk to me about how you're working your program. So another time I had someone who was taking advantage of my generosity, and through working these 12-step programs, I stood up for myself and asked this person to make a small contribution. Okay, they'd been free riding on me for years. So I asked them to step up, make a small contribution to, I just asked them to buy some toilet paper. And they went out and bought a grand total of 4 rolls of toilet paper. And then I snapped. And so I said, okay, first I said $50 a month, and the person didn't take it well, but I said, well, if you want this, you need to give me $50 a month. And then I raised it to $100 a month. And as long as this person pays me $100. And another time there was somebody that I was eager to help out. Someone with tremendous talent, tremendous brain. Like, I really wanted to be generous to this person and help out, but they wouldn't do the most elementary things. They wouldn't contribute on the most elementary level. And so I decided, okay, I'm not gonna help out. This person won't do the most elementary things to be a good neighbor, to be a good friend. I'm just gonna step back. So Al-Anon is a great 12-step program. It's literally about it's literally for people with alcoholics in their life, but it's really for everyone, because it's about how do you deal with sick people and how do you distinguish between where you end and other people begin. So I'll just give you one specific. In Al-Anon, they teach you don't make a suggestion to somebody more than once. Okay? Like, make one suggestion that they check out Al-Anon or AA or Under Owners Anonymous. Just make a suggestion once and then let it go. or I suggested to people, you should really try the activator. I save probably $2,000 or $3,000 a year in physical therapy bills just by learning how to use my activator. And I'll admit, there's one person I said this to maybe 3 times, which was 2 times more than was necessary. But I really like that Al-Anon precept. Don't make a suggestion more than once. Wow, I love this this community that I've developed on YouTube of former guests who've launched out with their own YouTube channels. Brundlefly is an increasingly successful YouTube channel that gets as many viewers as I do, because he has many gifts as a host and a moderator that I don't have, and he's just going to go from success to success, along with Babylonian Hebrew, with the Blue Lizard YouTube channel. It's great to see your kids excelling you. It's great to see them going out on their own and succeeding. Our problems are not our problems, they're just symptoms. The real problem is lack of connection. Do you connect normally with other people? And to me, when I have problems, they're just symptoms that I need to work my 12-step program a little more diligently. There are tools like time recording. You must pay attention to how we spend our time, to track whether we're using it to pursue our own goals. We should measure our achievements and reward ourselves when we make progress towards our goals. Bye-bye.